All right, so I wanted to jump in here and rebuild our series known as Tuesday Tips. These videos will also be, we're going to upload them to YouTube where we don't have to worry about the Facebook archives and stuff getting deleted. So we want to get, into probably one of our most common deals here is a weekly disc clutch maintenance and cleaning. So a few prerequisites before you get started here, which we're going to do this one, one of our blueprinted bully units here. So a few tools that you're going to need. You're going to need a digital caliper, 5/32 Allen wrench T-handle, and a set of snap ring pliers. So first thing we're going to do is let's flip this guy over, and we're going to start taking it. We're going to start taking it apart, and we'll get into the cleaning and the checkup part of it here as we go. So just as we're working this, we want to make sure that we look at all the parts, pieces, snap rings, make sure there's no damage on it, and make sure there's still a good gap here where it's not stretched out or pulled. Then we're going to separate the clutch and the basket, and I'll go ahead and remove the sprocket. Also, forgive me with these snap rings. I've had these things for many years, and same thing. We're going to look at our snap ring here and make sure that the gaps are good, make sure it's not all wadded up and destroyed. We'll push the sprocket out. I might have to give it a couple taps with this rubber end here. So if you ever get a tight fitting basket like that, don't sand these corners. We don't want to introduce any slop into it. So when you go to accelerate and there's no slop here, you get the maximum transfer of power possible. So anywhere that there's slop and stuff, we want to make sure that we keep an eye on these baskets to keep them from tearing up. So first thing, we're going to look at the baskets, and this usually correlates to air gap also, is you'll see these little grooves here where your tabs lay. Typically, if your air gap gets a little bit too big, your clutch will bore down out of control, then it'll definitely eat into these baskets as well. So we're just going to separate this stuff right now for later, because how we clean this and your sprockets and stuff is definitely different than how we do your clutch package. So I'm going to remove the bearings also, and we're going to give them a quick look over, and we're going to see, we're going to make sure that none of the thrust washers are broken, or we make sure that all of our needle bearings are in place here and good to go. So everything looks pretty nice there, and we'll set that to the side for cleaning later. All right, so the next thing we're going to get into is we have to understand that with these clutches, there's some of them that have the holes open in the back of them, but some of these bullies and have a sealed back, and some of the new Vipers do also. But the ones that don't, you have to understand the dirtiest thing on the whole cart is like your chain drive system, your clutch, your gear, and your grease. So we want to try to create an environment like with this type of basket where there's no holes and stuff in it, to where we're keeping, we sacrifice a little bit of heat for some cleanliness, to where we don't have to worry about things sealing over. So real quick, while we get into this, you can also take your caliper here. We'll make sure we turn it on. We're going to zero this guy here real quick. This is how we tell if we're ready for a rebuild or not, based on this disc thickness. So we're going to take a friction disc here, and we're just going to pull it out to the side where you can get a hold of the friction material, and then we're going to snap this guy down. Let me make sure it's zeroed out. It's just an old cheap caliper. And then we're going to go get a thickness reading on this, and we can see that that's 120.5 thousandths without trying to gouge down on it. So basically what we do is we try to stop at 118, 117. As far as performance goes, and no more than what these rebuilds cost. Your average two-disc rebuild's like $150. It saves a lot of money running up and down the road, but we've never been able to put a race count on exactly how many races that you can get on a clutch. And the reason being is, like, say for example, you go to a quarter mile, grip and rip kind of track, and you're running around on 5, 6, 6, 7 air, this clutch is going to wear so much different than if you go to somewhere where you're running 2 and 3, or 2.5 and 3, or all these low airs. There's a drag resistance there. And then, for example, you go out and you're running, and you have a right rear that you was trying to grow, and then it shrunk on you. Now you lost your stagger in the back, and the car gets tighter on the banjo string. That also affects the wear on the clutches. So your honest way of understanding kind of when it's time to go in for a rebuild is to take that caliper, measure that friction disc. Like I said, it drops down around 117, 118. That's a good safe spot. At that point, in my opinion, from what I've seen, is you're not going to destroy baskets and stuff at that point in time, and you're not going to, you know, break your hubs and put cracks in them and stuff. It's just a good safe spot to stop to where you're going to get the most performance and stuff out of it. Now, that might be 7 races. It might be 15. Might be 6. It just really depends on the type of racing that you're doing and what you got going on as far as like the track, the setup, you know, tire bites, you prep too much, you lock down. It's just too many variables. So we just try to give good, honest, fair guidance to where, you know, that caliper doesn't lie. You know, these discs are roughly around 124, 125 when they're new, but we also, you know, have seen enough of them over the years to see that that's a fair, safe stopping point. So next thing we're going to get into is we're going to look into cleaning this clutch cartridge. Now you'll notice that I got some non-chlorinated brake parts cleaner here. I only use this in a really bad scenario, if something's really messed up. I mean, like if your kid, you know, got off the track and got in a big mud hole and this thing's absolutely gotted, then absolutely. But 99% of the time, I would rather just take an air hose, and I'm going to show you here real quick how we clean this. So just an air hose and a good old terry cloth rag, and I'm going to go through this process. Please, might turn your volume down there for a second because that air blast is a little loud. So basically, when you get your air gun, is what we want to do is we want to remove the dirt, and we want to make sure that it's going in a direction where it's not getting trapped. So I'm just going to use this as a pointer. So I'm going to put my air gun right here down the sides of these levers here, because if you blow from the back, there's really nowhere for that to go. It's going to get trapped inside of here. So we're trying to get to where the air and the dust and debris goes out. Same thing with the lever pockets, same thing with the levers. We're trying to get the air to push the debris out the backside, and we might be able to catch a glimpse of that. The last track this was on wasn't a calcium track, it was just real dusty. So here we go. So we're just aiming this gun here like this, and we're going right down. And you can see the dust escape from the back. Might be able to see that on video, I hope so, because it's definitely doing exactly what we want it to do. So we got that little gap there, and we're just spitting that dust right out. We want to get out of the lever pockets. We don't want it to fight with anything. So then now I'm just going to do some general spot touches here. There's a little piece of dirt right there that's kind of formed, and I'm just going to still try to push out. And then for the residual, the rest of it, should just be able to take your terry cloth towel, be able to take your terry towel and wipe, just take a good wipe of this, and then that should be supple plenty. Now, doing that, we've not introduced any additional cleaner contaminants to your friction disc material, and they're kind of, they stay in good shape, good light there. Your next pieces coming into that is, especially on these bullies and vipers and stuff like that, you see these 6 bolts here in the middle? These are 5/32. So I'm just going to grab a T-handle here, and I'm going to start, you know, in a simple torque pattern. I'm just going to crank on these things to make sure that these guys stay tight. Now, with these stainless bolts going into these steel hubs, and you got an aluminum activator, when you get up to temperature and you start running, things can move, especially off your first rebuild. So is what happens when these 6 bolts come loose on top is this starts to separate from the rest of the clutch. You know, your springs will hold your spring stud plate, but as what happens is it just doesn't want to engage. So as it starts to loosen up, you'll feel that the clutch begins to slip and generate an incredible amount of heat, and then it just loses performance by the moment as these bolts continue to back out. So you just want to make sure that you just want to grab and hit these guys here and make sure that they're tight and snug down. Next piece here on the back, just going to take and wipe a rag off. Check this housing right here and make sure nothing's broke, cracked. Everything looks pretty good right there. Now, as far as the basket and stuff goes, you can take your basket, and basically is what I do to it is like these brake clean cans, over the years, they're just expensive. But you can take, you know, just a spray foam cleaner, literally, and just spray the inside of these things. Same thing with the outside, just a little bit. This is real weak stuff. It's nothing very strong at all. Just kind of give it a little rub down there, I guess, and you can take it in the sink and rinse it out, whatever you want to do, but it just saves a bunch of money from having to have the high-end brake parts cleaner stuff. And so you just want to make sure that you clean this stuff separate from the other. So you can see that it's super easy to clean that way. It's not really a big deal. It's tough to do with a camera in between it, so you'll have to forgive me there. And then the same thing with your sprocket there. You can do the same thing with the sprocket. Just take your cleaner, spray on there. Same thing within here. But after you get done with your sprocket and stuff, just throw a little coat of WD-40 on it, just to make sure that you don't hold rust. Now, oiling this thing, over the years, there's been a lot of people that just straight up takes Vaseline, but I don't believe in Vaseline being a quality bearing lube. So we actually have some stuff here that is synthetic. And the reason that we use the thinner synthetic stuff is because your dust on your racetracks, when you have a grease that you put inside of here, is what happens is that grease doesn't have what's called a deflection value. So the deflection value is missing from grease. It absorbs everything and just turns into an abrasive ball and kills performance and just grabs everything else into it. So try to stay away from using the heavy grease on your needle bearings. Now, when you're talking about your 10 and 11s, it's a completely different set of rules for that. So this here, we can actually do, you know, something a little thinner. And then even if you don't have anything really good, just get you some like 017 Mobil. Just dip your finger, run it around in there, and let it go. You want to stay away from your dry lubricants and all that, to where it does need some fluidity to where you can do this. So basically, this is your checkout in a gist. And sorry, but we had to, like I said, remake these videos and try to, you know, get them back out there to help support everybody and help everybody's program come along, you know. And actually, here's a part that I missed. There's something that you see a whole lot of at the race. You'll see people's clutches coming loose, and I'm going to show you the culprit here. So you see this lock washer here, right? When you tighten this clutch back down and put it back on, these things typically don't last very long. So when you see them like this here, that's kind of flattened out and got flat, they're not really doing anything at that point. So just go ahead and throw those away. Put you a new one on there. Now, stay away from using an impact to install a clutch. We just take and put the clutch down on the crankshaft, and then I hold the clutch, and I'll tighten it the best that I can, and then I'll take a 1/2-inch wrench and put over it, and then I'll like tap it with a 3/4, just give it like 3 taps just to lock it down. When you take an impact and you crank that thing down, you're killing your lock washer, but the clutch can also come loose easier once it begins to heat and expand. There's no give or anything there. The second thing that you got to really watch for on these one-piece units, you know, and even some of the Vipers and other stuff too, is, you know, when you look at let's look at this bearing race here that's on this unit here. Let me zero my gauge out here just to give you a quick look at it. That's 63 thousandths thick. Yeah, roughly, yeah. Might have mushroomed on the edge, so I'm seeing, you know, it's in the mid-50s, upper 50s, 57 thousandths, 58 thousandths. So when you get this thing and you've got that impact and you've really cranked this thing down, while it's cold, you don't really have much of an effect, but when the thing gets hot, you'll start to see a mushroom here. And if you ever have these sprockets to where you're having trouble getting them off, or they're getting real sticky feeling and stuff like that, that's why it's just been over tightened and smashed down. So you just kind of want to watch your end gap. If you got clutches that hang over and stuff like that, we want to make sure that they rock a little bit, you know, so that we're not putting all the pressure on this center shaft piece here. So again, I want to thank you guys so much for the work and hanging in there with us, trying to get these videos rebuilt and being super busy. But if there's anything we can help you with, give us a call at the shop at 304-769-5263. It's a commercial line. Our normal working hours is roughly like 9 to 6 Monday through Friday, but there's a lot of times I'm in here till 7 or 8. You're more than welcome to call that line, any time in the evening or the weekends that we're not racing or something like that. And if we're working, we definitely answer. Or you can stop by and see us at RM Stealth Clutches, 348 16th Street, Dunbar, West Virginia. And we also have a website of RonRollinsMotorsports.com and a Facebook page of Stealth Clutches. So again, thank you guys so much. We're going on 33 years of doing this, and we super appreciate everybody, and thank you for letting us be a part of your success, and hope you have a great day.